Okay, so finding and keeping a TTRPG group in 2026 is hard. However, that probably means we're a little more inclined to overlook red flags when we actually find one. Now, sometimes a red flag is just a flag. It's something you can absolutely work through. But sometimes it's not. Let's talk GM red flags. The big 44. How could we talk about GM red flags without talking about the gold mine, the iconic 44 rules for D&D Reddit post? This masterpiece of a post had rules like, if you call me or my roles unfair, I will get up and go home. And if you gotta ride with me, you can find your own way back and suck it up. And the very fun and fair rule number 4. I will take your character's loot away as often as I give it. Or good old rule 10. Every snide comment you make to an NPC will be remembered and repaid in triplicate. You seem to feel there is no consequence. This whole post is amazing, but the real red flag here is the over-macho schoolboy tone. Basically, the big 44 represents to me the GM who has convinced themselves they're a badass, someone you need to fear. The best rule is probably number 44. I'm never just threatening you. I'm promising you. This is obviously cringe. The whole thread is a masterpiece of cringe that I'm still not convinced wasn't a troll. But I hope I don't need to explain that GMs who actually act like this are just really insecure, and it comes out in this hyper-aggressive GM versus player mentality. GMs and players are not enemies, and really no good can come from gaming with that attitude. ChatGPT Adventures. It's 2026, and large language models aren't just for college students trying to avoid learning anything from the degree that's going to leave them in debt for the next 40 years. And I do kind of understand the theory behind having ChatGPT build a world for you if you're low on time. The problem is that it's going to suck. Not because ChatGPT built it, but because the GM didn't. How is the DM supposed to improvise when players engage with their world if they have no connection to it? This can also be a problem with pre-packaged adventure settings too, but at least the types of DMs who buy those books are like obsessive freaks who literally devour every single piece of information. They dive in, they absorb everything, they live in the world as they read about it. Same goes for massive Lord of the Rings nerds who set games in Middle-earth. You don't literally need to be the author to set a game in a setting, it can totally work. But ChatGPT is not Tolkien, and it's usually something GMs read once and they're like, yeah, that'll do. And then they need to rely on it every time something new comes up. ChatGPT is also just pulling random patchwork fantasy tropes and slamming them together. There's not going to be any deep themes or connections running through the entire thing because AI literally can't do that creative part. But I think for me, the biggest problem here is that the building and exploration of your own world is kind of the most fun part of Dungeons & Dragons. So an AI-reliant GM is kind of robbing themselves of the best part of the game while ensuring that they never get better.
Welcome back to D&D News. In our latest story, a local DM has been found dead. Derek Fletcher's on the scene. Well, Hank, it looks like DM Harold Fletching was attempting to run an entire campaign purely off the top of his head. Ultimately, the stress and confusion caused his brain to explode, killing him instantly this morning as he tried to remember the name of the town his players were staying in. By God! So he wasn't using World Anvil? No, it seems he was not taking advantage of World Anvil's features to connect maps and timelines into an interactive world. Create family trees, manage character sheets, complex plots, plans, and shifting maps visually to represent his evolving campaign. Instead, his notes consisted of a single post-it note with the words, "Steal from Lord of the Rings." Is there any other news you can give us? Yes, World Anvil have offered a 51% discount on all yearly subscriptions, so a tragedy like this will never happen again. Simply use code D&D Shorts at checkout. It really is the ultimate tool for all world builders and game masters out there, Frank, and I'm told the women go crazy for it. Thank you, Derek. That is code D&D Shorts at checkout for a 51% discount on all World Anvil yearly subscriptions. Link in description.
No Session Zero. Making sure that everyone is on the same page with regard to a game is everyone's responsibility, but the GM definitely has the most power here. Session Zero these days is mostly talked about with relation to safety tools, which is really only a tiny part of it. Really, it's just about establishing expectations for the game. Skipping Session Zero can lead to crossed wires and horribly mismatched player characters and expectations. This is how you end up with a party consisting of Deadpool, Legolas, Optimus Prime, and Rainbow Dash. I mean, what is this? Magic the Gathering? It's also where players can start exploring character relationships, working each other into their backstory, and it prevents everyone accidentally showing up as a thief rogue. Although that actually does sound kind of fun. So skipping a Session Zero kind of shows a general GM disinterest in players' agency within their story and connections to each other. Money! So I added this one last minute based on a friend's experience of being invited to a new D&D group, playing over Discord, and then being told after the fact that they needed to send the DM $15. Now, some people would say that any type of paid DMing is a red flag. I wouldn't go that far, but not telling someone before they show up to a game that that game is paid is a catastrophic sign. It's a scam. Right? It's a scam. With that in mind, we can expand this red flag to include any type of poor communication when it comes to financial expectations for a game. Are players going to pay? If so, how much? What do you get for that money? What are the expectations on behalf of the players and on the DM? Any failure to set the ground rules around money for any paid service is an issue. Money fights can ruin friendships. Even a non-malicious DM who just mishandles that kind of stuff is still a huge red flag. You gotta get it straightened out. In-game punishment. I would like to once again refer to Reddit post Big44 Rule 13. If you are late with no good reason, I am going to halve your character's hit points for the entire session. I actually think this is a deeper red flag than just trying to be a badass. It's when the GM takes in-game retribution. The game table needs to stay the game table. It is a huge red flag when the GM starts doing in-game retribution for any perceived slight. D&D is not balanced around players randomly having half hit points for a day, or losing all their loot because they took the last slice of pizza. It also just doesn't work. The point of this rule is to stop people being late, but actually it just encourages people to dip altogether. If you realize you're going to be 2 minutes late, you'll just skip the entire session, rather than have a crap game because you're being punished. I do want to shout out the opposite of this too, which is rewarding players for out-of-game behavior. This could be okay. Example, if you show up to the game on time, you start with a point of heroic inspiration. I don't think that is a terrible idea, just a small incentive. But anything more than that, like giving out extra XP or magic items, starts getting a little bit sus as well. Forever DM depression. This one might be controversial, it's extremely common, and I'm just gonna say it. It is a red flag when the DM doesn't want to DM. If someone is running a game because they desperately want to play D&D as a player, but no one else wants to DM, so they have to do it, that is a bad sign. Not only is every player now complicit in the psychological torture of one of their friends, but the game is never going to be as good as with a passionate, motivated DM. The answer to this one is honestly kind of brutal, but if you're not enjoying the game as a game master, stop. Often a break is all you need, and it could give the opportunity for a different player to take up the game master role. The meme of the forever DM is so prevalent that it actually disguises how depressing the concept actually is when you think about it. DMing is actually really fun, but if you're burned out, you just gotta stop. The DMPC. But what happens if your forever DM tries to take matters into their own hands? What if they realize that they can DM the game and still be a player too? That's where you get the DMPC. And remember, this is only a red flag. I'm not saying it's always a terrible thing. DMPCs, or Dungeon Master player characters, can totally work. It just refers to an NPC character with levels in the story. But there is always the dreaded possibility that the DMPC becomes the star of the show. Inevitably, they have meta information, because the person controlling them also controls the flow of the narrative and every single monster. Also, because it's the DM controlling them, they have no game balance check. The DM can give their PC every magic item in the game if they want, or have them 10 levels higher than the rest of the party. And there are endless stories online of masturbatory GMs steamrolling an entire game with their golden child DMPC. Sometimes, the party are on an escort mission and the character they're escorting has a stat block. That's great. Sometimes, the party just needs to hire a healer NPC because everyone else is 100% committed to murder. That's fine as well. DMPCs can work, it's just when they don't, they really suck. Potential for future streaming. If you ever see an advert for a game with the words potential for future streaming on it, run. Critical fumbles. So a critical fumble is just the opposite of a critical hit. When you roll a natural 1 on an attack roll, something bad happens, usually like dropping your weapon or taking damage. This sounds like a really cool idea. The problem is, it literally breaks the game. D&D already has a martial character versus spellcaster divide, especially at the higher levels of the game, and the problem is, most powerful spells don't actually require you to make an attack. Banishment, Wall of Force, Disintegrate, Force Cage, Fireball, none of these spells are actually attacks. Technically. Meanwhile, 99% of being a fighter, rogue, barbarian, and monk, and about 80% of being a paladin and ranger is making attack rolls. So having critical fumbles that punish you for rolling a natural 1 on an attack only punishes certain types of heroes. It also doesn't really make sense narratively. Are you telling me that a battle master fighter, master of swordplay, has a 5% chance of stabbing themselves in the nuts every time they swing their sword? A level 20 dual-wielding fighter has a 22.5% chance of dropping their weapon or wounding themselves every 6 seconds. That jumps up to 40% chance if they action surge. So a level 20 fighter is about 4 times worse than a level 1 fighter if you use a critical fumble table. They just don't work in the 5e system, even though it is, in theory, a cool thing to have something negative happen when you get a natural 1. Having 1 is a signal that this is a DM who is implementing their own rules without fully understanding why the core rules are what they are. New system, house rules. Following on from critical fumbles, we can kind of expand this red flag to include that moment where you show up to a new game and you're met with an absolute mountain of house rules. This is especially suspicious if the DM is completely new to the system. This includes seeing a bunch of arbitrary bans as well. There's nothing worse than seeing 95% of the game options outlawed because the DM has decided, I don't know, that Harangon are broken or something. Also, no TTRPG is perfect, and D&D definitely has issues, but the rules are probably there for a reason. There is a reason why you can't use a bonus action ability for your main action. There is a reason why no playable species has a 30-foot burrow speed. But these are things that you have to have played the game to see why they're there. So seeing a bunch of house rules from a new GM is sus. Not doubting the enthusiasm, by the way. You absolutely should modify your games, and I love that. But getting a bunch of house rules right off the bat is definitely raising an eyebrow. The Secret Keeper. Oh, D&D shorts, surely you're not about to suggest that DMs shouldn't keep secrets? Actually, yes, I am. At least in some scenarios. Obviously, GMs should have secrets. You gotta have puzzles and surprises and twists and turns. But a GM who shares nothing about anything? That's a red flag. TTRPGs are at their best when everyone can engage with the world and the story and influence the narrative, but players can't do that if they're not involved in that process. GMs absolutely should explain the world and explain the themes and explain what's going on a broader scale so players can engage with the events at play. Keeping everything locked behind the GM screen is a control tactic, ensuring that only the GM has any influence over the narrative. that restricts the player's ability to interact with the story, and generally speaking, less agency equals less fun. The Worrier. This is less of a game red flag and more of a life pink flag, I guess, but I feel desperately for GMs who very clearly worry a lot. For whatever reason, there is a subsection of GMs who clearly enjoy playing the game a lot, but panic endlessly about their players if they're really enjoying the game, and they bully themselves about their position as game master. Does this count as a red flag? I don't know, but as with many things you do with a partner, if you are so worried about your own performance you're not enjoying it, they are not going to enjoy it either. Luckily, this is a red flag that we as players can solve with lots of support, kindness, and gratitude. I've been told that beating anxiety isn't as easy as just telling someone not to be anxious anymore, but at least if you see a DM struggling with this at the table, you can help with just a little bit of kindness and a thank you. Also, I made a new book. There's some free playtest material you can grab from the Kickstarter pre-launch page down below, like the new Kappa playable species or the Circle of the Blade Druid. Link is down below, check it out and follow along to grab the free early backer Crystal Myth dice when it launches. Also remember to like and subscribe, check out other videos on the channel, and yeah, that's all I got. I'll see you next time.